The year was 2025 when a team of researchers from a European space agency made a discovery that would shake the entire world of archaeology and rewrite history books. They weren't digging in the frozen ground of Scandinavia, nor were they combing through the windswept plains of Greenland. Instead, they were sitting thousands of miles away, staring at high-resolution satellite images beamed down from orbit. At first glance, the photographs looked ordinary: vast stretches of tundra, dark forests, and coastlines battered by centuries of waves. But hidden within those pixels was something extraordinary: geometric outlines, strange patterns carved into the earth, and faint shadows that bore the unmistakable marks of human hands. And not just any humans, the Vikings. For centuries, the Viking Age has been shrouded in both myth and mystery. From the end of the 8th century until the mid-11th century, Norsemen sailed their dragon-headed ships across Europe, leaving behind sagas of conquest, plunder, and trade. Their stories have been told in blood and fire: the terror of Lindisfarne, the founding of Dublin, the voyages to Greenland, and even the first footsteps on North American shores, long before Columbus was ever born. But what if their legacy stretched even further? What if the sagas were hiding something too incredible for most historians to believe? The satellite images hinted at exactly that. Deep in a remote, windswept corner of Canada, thousands of kilometers from the well-known Norse site of L'Anse aux Meadows, anomalies began to appear. From above, the ground revealed strange rectangular patterns, almost like the faint ghost of ancient longhouses. Lines extended outward in ways that suggested paths or defensive walls. At first, skeptics argued these were just natural formations, tricks of light, or the scars of glacial movement from millennia past. But when digital overlays were compared to known Viking settlements in Greenland and Iceland, the similarities were undeniable. It was as though time itself had hidden the blueprint of an ancient Norse village, waiting for the modern eye of technology to reveal it again. News leaked quickly. Archaeologists, historians, and conspiracy theorists all jumped onto the story. Could this be proof of a lost Viking colony, one that thrived far longer and spread far deeper into North America than anyone had ever dared to imagine? And if so, what happened to them? Why had no trace been found before now? The deeper the researchers dug into the satellite archives, the stranger the story became. They uncovered more anomalies: patterns suggesting boat slips near an ancient shoreline, strange stone formations aligned with the solstice, and what appeared to be burial mounds. For the Viking people, settlements were never just random outposts. They were places of worship, trade, and ritual. If these patterns were real, they hinted at something far greater: not just a temporary camp, but a thriving community, one that may have existed for centuries and left behind secrets now buried beneath the earth. Local indigenous communities added another layer of intrigue. Oral histories passed down through generations spoke of tall, pale-skinned visitors who arrived in long wooden ships centuries ago. These visitors brought strange tools of iron and weapons sharper than stone. Some stories spoke of violence, while others mentioned uneasy trade and exchanges of knowledge. Most historians dismissed these tales as myth, but now, the possibility loomed that these stories were not only true but tied directly to the ghostly shapes seen from space. Teams were assembled to investigate further. Ground-penetrating radar confirmed that beneath the soil were buried structures, longhouses, storage pits, and even what appeared to be a smithy where iron was once forged. And then came the most shocking discovery: remnants of wood buried deep within the frost, preserved for nearly 1,000 years. When carbon dating results came back, the numbers stunned the world. The samples dated to the exact period of Viking expansion, roughly 1000 CE. The media exploded. Headlines screamed across the globe: "Lost Viking settlement found in North America." Some went further: were the Vikings the true discoverers of the New World? But with the excitement came fear. Because the site was not just old, it was vast, stretching farther than any known Viking outpost. The sheer size suggested this wasn't just a fleeting colony. It was a stronghold. But strongholds invite enemies. And with enemies come battles, battles that leave scars both on the land and in memory. Archaeologists carefully excavating the site began finding more than just structural remains. They uncovered fragments of weapons, rusted iron blades, arrowheads, and pieces of chainmail. Alongside them were bones, some Norse, some indigenous. The arrangement of the bones suggested conflict. But one skeleton in particular caught everyone's attention. It belonged to a tall man, nearly 6 feet in height, buried with a broken sword still clutched in his hand. His skull bore the marks of a violent death, caved in by a heavy blow. This was not just a farmer or a trader. This was a warrior. The discovery of the warrior's grave sent shivers down the spine of even the most skeptical scientists. Because with it came another realization: the Viking presence in North America had not ended with quiet abandonment. It had ended in blood. Yet, there was more. Deep within what appeared to be the central longhouse of the site, archaeologists uncovered fragments of parchment sealed in a clay container. Though degraded, parts of the writing were still legible. The language was Old Norse, and the words told of hardship, hunger, and betrayal. They spoke of battles with local tribes, of winters too harsh to endure, and of voyages deeper inland in search of resources. But then the parchment became stranger, speaking of visions in the sky, fire serpents that fell to the earth, and a curse that followed the people. Some experts dismissed these lines as superstition, but others wondered, were these descriptions of natural phenomena, meteors, northern lights, or something more? The more the team uncovered, the greater the mystery became. It wasn't just the evidence of conflict or survival. It was the suggestion that this Viking site had been part of something much bigger, a chain of settlements across the continent, stretching far beyond what anyone had thought possible. Some whispered about hidden maps, lost voyages, and even connections to secret knowledge brought back to Europe centuries later. As excavation continued, satellite technology revealed yet another chilling detail. A few kilometers away from the main site, hidden within dense forest, lay a massive circular earthwork. Perfectly round, with trenches and embankments, it resembled ancient fortifications seen in Scandinavia. But this one was in the heart of the New World. What were the Vikings defending against? Or were they guarding something of immense value? The story had only just begun, but already it was clear: this discovery wasn't simply about rewriting history. It was about uncovering truths deliberately buried by time, truths that might explain not just how far the Vikings traveled, but why they vanished from history so suddenly. The world was watching, hungry for answers, but as the shadows of the past began to stir, one thing was certain: this Viking site was more than a settlement. It was a mystery, a warning, and perhaps even a prophecy. And so, as the first part of this unfolding saga closes, the stage is set. Beneath the soil of a forgotten land, the bones of warriors whisper secrets of 1,000 years. Secrets that satellites have brought back to life. Secrets that will force us to ask the question: what else is still hidden beneath the earth, waiting to rise again? The excavation site buzzed with an energy unlike anything the archaeologists had ever experienced. The world's eyes were locked onto this lonely stretch of North American wilderness. News crews hovered like vultures, politicians wanted claims of ownership, and scholars debated late into the night whether this discovery meant rewriting every page of European and indigenous history. But beneath the noise of global attention, the real work pressed on, uncovering secrets that the soil had held in silence for a millennium. As digging expanded beyond the central longhouse, the team began finding more artifacts, each one a fragment of a lost story. A bronze brooch shaped like a dragon. A comb carved from reindeer antler. Shards of pottery unlike anything local tribes would have made, yet strangely unique compared to typical Norse designs. These pieces suggested not just survival but adaptation. Whoever had lived here had learned to fuse Norse tradition with New World resources. It wasn't just a Viking outpost anymore, it was becoming something new, something hybrid, something the history books had never accounted for. But then came the discovery that would darken everything. Beneath layers of soil, near what looked like the settlement's outer walls, ground-penetrating radar revealed an anomaly. A massive pit, carefully dug and then filled in again. Excavation exposed a mass burial site. At first, they thought it was simply the casualties of battle, fallen warriors buried together in haste. But the truth was more chilling. Skeletons of men, women, and even children lay together in unnatural positions, as if their lives had ended suddenly, violently, and without ceremony. Among them were signs of struggle: skulls fractured, ribs pierced, hands bound with decayed rope. And scattered among the bones were objects that made the air itself feel heavier: iron shackles, scorched fragments of shields, and a long, ceremonial spear broken in two. Forensic experts determined that some of these people hadn't died in battle. They had been executed. But who had executed them? The local tribes. Their own kin in some brutal act of betrayal. Or something far stranger. The parchment discovered earlier now took on new meaning. Its lines spoke of hunger and betrayal, of visions in the sky, of curses. Perhaps these were not metaphors after all. Some researchers speculated that internal divisions had torn the colony apart, that different clans of Vikings had turned on one another in desperation. Others wondered if the indigenous peoples, threatened by these foreign intruders, had fought back with overwhelming force. But a growing group whispered of something darker still, that the settlers had encountered forces beyond their understanding, something that they believed was supernatural. It was during this tense period that the second great shock came. In the area near the circular earthwork previously spotted by satellites, archaeologists uncovered the entrance to a tunnel. Carved into the earth and reinforced with timber, the passage descended into darkness. Its architecture was crude but functional, suggesting it had been dug quickly, perhaps as a place of refuge or a hidden storage chamber. With flashlights and cameras, the team descended, their boots crunching against soil untouched for centuries. The air was damp and heavy, carrying the scent of age and decay. As they advanced, the tunnel widened into a chamber. What they saw inside silenced them all. Lining the walls were carvings, spirals, serpents, ships, and runes. But these weren't just decorative markings. They told a story. The carvings depicted longships crossing vast oceans, warriors clashing with figures dressed in strange garments, and towering beings with elongated limbs, their hands raised as though wielding power over men. At the center of the chamber was a stone slab, upon which lay the shattered remains of what appeared to be a crystal object, glittering faintly even after 1,000 years. What was this crystal? Some believed it was nothing more than quartz, a common mineral. Others argued that it had been part of something far more significant, a ritual object, perhaps even an heirloom brought from Scandinavia itself. One daring researcher suggested it might have been part of the fabled sunstones, said to guide Viking ships across oceans by revealing the position of the sun even on cloudy days. But the runes told a darker interpretation. They spoke of the serpent of the sky, a fiery omen that had followed the settlers, a curse that brought hunger, madness, and betrayal. Was this serpent a meteor? An aurora mistaken for wrathful gods? Or was it something far stranger, something these people had truly feared? The deeper the team went, the more they found. Another chamber, smaller and more secretive, revealed objects that defied easy explanation. A mask carved from bone, its hollow eyes staring blankly. Strange figurines combining Norse and indigenous styles, warriors with animal heads, half god, half man. And buried within a clay jar, a set of iron keys, their purpose unknown but their craftsmanship undeniable. The symbolism was impossible to ignore. This place was not just a shelter. It was a temple, a shrine, perhaps even a vault where the settlers had hidden their most sacred possessions before their downfall. And yet, as the evidence mounted, so did the fear among the team. Strange things began to happen at the camp. Equipment failed without explanation. Batteries drained in hours instead of days. One researcher swore she saw shadows moving at the edge of her tent, though no one else had been there. Another claimed to hear whispers in the wind, words in a language he didn't know but felt deep in his bones. The scientists laughed these off at first, dismissing them as stress, fatigue, or paranoia. But the whispers grew louder with every day of digging. Meanwhile, historians began connecting the discoveries to a broader context. Across Scandinavia, old sagas and myths spoke of voyages to a land called Vinland, a place of plenty where grapes and wheat grew wild. But some lesser-known sagas hinted at darker journeys, tales of cursed lands across the sea, lands where men vanished, where gods tested the courage of mortals. Could these stories have been inspired by this very colony? Could the parchment and carvings be the remnants of sagas never told, sagas that spoke not of triumph but of tragedy? And then came the third shock, one that would send waves through the entire world. Satellite imagery taken just beyond the excavation zone revealed something buried even deeper, a massive, ship-like structure embedded in the earth. At first, they thought it was just another longhouse, but as radar scans sharpened, the truth became clear. It was a longship, larger than any found in Norway or Denmark, buried intentionally beneath layers of soil. Excavation revealed its skeletal frame, preserved in the frozen earth. Nearly 30 meters long, it dwarfed the famous Oseberg ship and bore strange markings along its hull. It had never set sail on these waters, yet it had been carried here, piece by piece, or perhaps built with foreign timber in this new land. Why had it been buried? Was it a ceremonial offering to the gods? Or was it hidden in haste, concealed from enemies who sought to destroy it? Within its hull, archaeologists found more than timber. They found relics, a sword etched with runes, its blade blackened as if scorched by fire. A wooden chest containing fragments of glass beads, amber, and coins minted far away in Europe. Most shocking of all, they found human remains, 5 skeletons arranged as though seated on benches, their skulls tilted forward as if frozen in time. Were these warriors buried with their ship? Or had they died inside it, sealed away during some desperate ritual? The discovery of the ship electrified the world. Some claimed it proved the Vikings had not only explored but attempted to establish entire fleets in the New World. Others whispered of something darker, that the ship had been buried to keep something from escaping it. And the whispers at the camp only grew louder. By now, even the skeptics among the researchers began to feel it, a weight in the air, a presence watching them. At night, the aurora borealis shimmered above in unnatural patterns, dancing like serpents across the sky. Indigenous elders who visited the site warned the archaeologists to leave it buried, to let the spirits of the dead rest. This place was never meant to be found, one elder said gravely. They brought something here that did not belong, and it consumed them. But the world would not stop. The digging continued, and as shovels cut deeper into the earth, as centuries-old bones emerged into the light of day, the truth of the Viking colony became ever murkier. This was not merely a settlement. It was a graveyard of ambition, a crossroads of cultures, and perhaps even a portal to something beyond human comprehension. The excavation reached its most dangerous phase. Weeks had passed since the buried longship was unearthed, and the whispers surrounding the site had only intensified. The archaeologists were no longer sleeping soundly. Dreams haunted them, visions of men in hornless helmets, of longhouses burning under green skies, of ships swallowed by waves of black fire. They told themselves it was stress, the weight of history pressing down on them. But deep inside, each knew they were stirring something ancient, something that did not want to be remembered. The tunnel beneath the circular earthwork became the focal point. Ground-penetrating radar hinted at a deeper chamber, one sealed off intentionally. When the team broke through layers of compacted stone and timber, they entered a space unlike anything they had ever seen. The air was stale, untouched for centuries. In the center of the chamber lay a massive stone altar. Upon it rested a single object, cloaked in dust, a carved box of dark oak bound with iron bands, its lid etched with runes that glowed faintly under the archaeologists' lamps. The runes were translated with difficulty, but their meaning sent chills down spines. Here lies the serpent's gift. To open is to invite its wrath. To leave is to preserve the world. Debate erupted instantly. Some wanted to leave the box untouched, to respect the warning. Others, driven by ambition and curiosity, argued that this could be the discovery of the century. In the end, science overrode superstition. With careful hands, the archaeologists unlatched the rusted iron bands. The box groaned as it opened, releasing a gust of air that smelled of ash and salt. Inside, cushioned by decayed fabric, lay a crystal unlike anything known to science. It was perfectly spherical, shimmering faintly with inner light, as though it held the memory of stars. Experts later speculated it could have been a polished form of Iceland spar, a mineral Vikings may have used as sunstones for navigation. But this stone felt different. It pulsed faintly in the dark, and those who touched it swore they felt warmth, as though it were alive. The parchment found earlier with tales of a fire serpent now seemed connected. Had this object been what the settlers feared? Had they buried it in desperation, believing it cursed? As the crystal was lifted from the altar, the chamber seemed to groan, dust raining from the ceiling. Outside, a storm rolled in from the coast, darkening the skies. The aurora borealis erupted overhead, its colors unnaturally vivid, writhing like serpents. The local indigenous elders who had been observing from a distance refused to come near. "You have taken what was never meant to rise," one whispered, before turning away. But the archaeologists pressed on. Within days, they uncovered more carvings, this time depicting rituals. Men and women kneeling before the crystal, their arms raised in supplication. Warriors locked in battle with figures cloaked in fire. And at the edge of the carvings, ships sailing not westward, but into the very sky. The imagery defied explanation. Some dismissed it as symbolic. Others speculated wildly. Had the settlers believed the crystal was a gift from the gods? Or worse, had they believed it was a weapon? The bones buried with the longship now took on new meaning. Perhaps these weren't just warriors, but guardians, men chosen to die with the object, to ensure it remained hidden forever. The mass grave near the settlement suggested conflict not just with indigenous tribes but among the settlers themselves. Maybe half the colony wanted to keep the crystal. Maybe the others wanted it destroyed. Betrayal, civil war, curses, it all fit the fragmented narrative. But then, science delivered a new shock. Testing revealed the crystal contained microscopic structures not consistent with any known mineral. They were too perfect, too geometric, almost like circuitry. A NASA consultant brought onto the project quietly suggested it might not be natural at all. If true, it meant this crystal, this serpent's gift, was not of Earth. Speculation exploded. Had the Vikings discovered something that fell from the sky, a meteorite carrying a strange artifact? Was this the fire serpent they described in their parchments? If so, then the settlers may not have been destroyed by local battles or famine alone. They may have been consumed by their attempt to harness a force far beyond their understanding. And now, in 2025, humanity had awoken it again. The camp became a place of fear. Electronic equipment malfunctioned constantly. Compass needles spun without reason. Cameras captured strange distortions, shadows where no one stood, flashes of light in sealed chambers. Several workers quit, unable to handle the weight of dread pressing on them. Those who remained grew obsessed with the crystal, staring at it for hours, whispering about visions of longships in the sky and warriors rising from the earth. One night, the crystal pulsed with light so intense it illuminated the entire camp. Witnesses swore they heard voices, chanting in Old Norse, echoing through the forest. Some ran in terror, while others fell to their knees in awe. By morning, the light had faded, but the fear remained. The final excavation revealed the settlement's last secret. Beneath the central longhouse, archaeologists found a burial unlike any other. A single coffin, carved from oak, bound with iron. Inside lay the remains of a man taller than any of his peers, clad in armor that shimmered faintly as though forged from something beyond iron. His hand clutched a sword etched with runes identical to those on the crystal's box. The translation chilled everyone. Guardian of the Gate. Who was this man? A Viking chieftain? A warrior priest? Or something stranger? His presence suggested the settlers saw their colony not as a home but as a battlefield in a war between forces unseen. As the world learned of these discoveries, governments moved in. The site was locked down by military presence, citing cultural preservation. The crystal was taken to an undisclosed location, and the excavation was halted. Official reports spoke of ongoing research, but whispers claimed the artifact had already been weaponized, its secrets too valuable to leave in the ground. The truth, however, lay in the whispers of those who had been there. They spoke of a warning carved in stone, one final line almost erased by time: when the serpent wakes, the north shall burn again. The story of the lost Viking colony was no longer just about history. It was about a prophecy. About an ancient object buried by hands that feared it. And about the question we must now face: have we unearthed knowledge meant to be forgotten? As the dust settled over the abandoned camp, the northern lights blazed brighter than ever, coiling like serpents across the night sky. And in that shimmering dance, it felt as though the Vikings themselves were watching, their thousand-year-old warning echoing louder than ever: some doors are not meant to be opened.